Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur Kasparyan with you guys on a lovely Monday afternoon / evening. Lovely? Question mark. Elizabeth Warren takes a DNA test. Will Donald Trump have to give her $1 million? The answer is very likely yes, although of course he won't because he's a liar and a fraud. We'll get into that a little bit later. I love what she did. Apparently not all Democratic strategists liked it though. I don't know if you saw that part of the story, Anna.
Who cares what Democratic strategists have to say?
Well, it'll be very relevant very soon. After the elections are over and now there is very little time left, just a couple of weeks left, the 2020 race will begin immediately. And people are already jockeying, and so that will become an enormous story. Now, along those lines, later tonight on the network, I will be interviewing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and we're going to talk to her about what committees she might be part of if she wins her race, as is very likely in the general election in that district, and what will progressives do with their newfound power. That is a topic that I love. And so very curious to see what Ocasio-Cortez is gonna say tonight. And so don't miss that. And of course, I tell you this all the time because it's relevant and it's true. If you wanna get all of our shows, and we have about 18 shows overall, become a member and get them anytime you want without any commercials. So tyt.com/join to become a member. All right, lots to show ahead. Anna, take it away.
All right. Over the weekend, Donald Trump had his second interview with Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes, and the tone of this interview was definitely different overall. Trump seemed more ready and willing to debate on various topics. And one of the topics that they touched on that I thought was interesting was how Trump had decided to mock Dr. Blasey Ford during a rally in Mississippi. Now, here is Donald Trump's defense of mocking Dr. Blasey Ford. Take a look.
You go out and you go to Mississippi.
The famous Mississippi speech.
I had one beer. Well, do you think it was? Nope, it was one beer. Oh, good. How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know.
And you mimicked Professor Blasey Ford. You mimicked her.
Had I not made that speech, we would not have won. I was just saying she didn't seem to know anything.
No,
and you're trying to destroy a life of a man who has been extraordinary.
So he's continuing with that line of attack. You know, the real victim in this was Brett Kavanaugh, who's an outstanding guy, an upstanding guy, and it was unfair of Dr. Blasey Ford to come forward with these allegations.
So two important notes there. One is, I mean, I'm not sure it could get any more absurd than him claiming that he wasn't mocking her when you just saw the tape, and he's got all these people laughing at her, et cetera. But I think he might have done it, and it gives you an insight into his mind when he said that they wouldn't have won if he hadn't done that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's preposterous. The Republicans who were gonna vote for him, no matter what, it's not like they saw Trump mocking him. Like the people who were on the fence. Like if you say Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma saw Donald Trump making fun of Blasey Ford and laughed along and thought, yeah, I'm gonna doubly vote yes, I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's the kind of monster Inhofe is. But if you say to me, Susan Collins, who was among the two deciding votes, looked at that speech and was like, oh, I like the zinger he had against Blasey Ford. Way to rub it into the survivor of a sexual assault. I like that, I'm voting with him now. No one in their right mind believes that. He almost prevented a victory there. He almost snatched defeat from the jaws of victory because he antagonized Susan Collins and Jeff Flake with that stupid speech. But in his own mind, I believe that he genuinely believes that he's the most amazing person on earth.
Right.
And that if he hadn't mocked her, he couldn't have won the vote. And he saved the day by doing that.
Well, I think the one consistent pattern that we see with Trump is that he wants to take full ownership of everything.
Especially victories.
Especially victories. And so it's I don't know if it's just another symptom of his insecurity and he internally recognizes his failures, but on the outside always tries to make it seem like he's doing nothing but winning, or if he's actually that delusional where he genuinely thinks a speech like that led to Kavanaugh's victory. But one thing that I do know is that during these rallies, what he tries to do more than anything is speak to his base. What does my base respond to? What does my base like? And his base loves that kind of rhetoric. His base enjoys this WWE wrestling tournament atmosphere, and they especially enjoy when he goes out of his way to insult people. And so the real question is, how do his female supporters respond to this? Do the majority of them like the way that he mocked Dr. Blasey Ford? That remains to be seen, but polls do indicate that he's losing the most support among white educated women.
And one more thing about that first clip is he seemed to say there at the end, well, I mean, she couldn't remember any of this stuff. But remember, the original position that the White House took was, we don't doubt her credibility. Even Trump himself was quoted by insiders as saying she seemed very credible after her testimony. Their main line of defense was, well, she probably misremembers. It was probably another guy who did it. But now, not only at the rally, but in that answer you saw there, no, he doubts that it was her. And he seemed to imply that they were trying to ruin Kavanaugh's life. And he seemed to include her in that.
Right.
So is his new contention that she's lying about everything and she purposely did it to try to ruin Kavanaugh's life? Look, I don't know that he thinks through anything he says. So, but
you're making the mistake of thinking that he has a strategy, Cenk. I'm tired of having a conversation with people who think this guy has any strategy.
Yeah, well, of course, Anna's quoting me back at me, but bottom line is, what he said indicates that in his head he thinks, yeah, she's making it up and she did it to smear Kavanaugh and none of it was true, which almost no one else, I mean, I'm sure some of his base believed that too, but almost no one else in politics believes that because they thought she was incredibly, she represented herself very well and that she was very, very credible. Again, the main thing that they leaned on was, well, it must have been someone else.
Right.
Which is not apparently what Trump thinks.
Now, we have one more clip where he discusses Kavanaugh. Let's take a quick look at that.
Professor Blasey Ford got before the Senate and was asked, what's the worst moment? And she said, when the two boys laughed at me, at my expense. And then I watched you mimic her and thousands of people were laughing at her.
They can do what they, I will tell you this, the way now Justice Kavanaugh was treated has become a big factor in the midterms. Have you seen what's gone on with the polls?
Okay, so let's break that one up down. First of all, when you read this stuff, it's not as bad as when you watch it. Because when you watch it, you see the buffoon in action. And so when she says, you know, the worst part was when they were laughing at her as they were attempting the rape, according to Blasey Ford's testimony. They say, what is that? No serious person reacts like that in an incredibly serious topic and question. You have a little bit of gravitas, a little bit of class, right? Jesus Christ, right? Okay, so that's the most minor of the things that occurred in that brief thing. Second of all, instead of addressing the question of, hey, like, isn't this unbecoming of a president to mock someone, instead of the implication of the question, he's like, well, have you seen the polls? In other words, I don't care about the substance at all. Did it help me or did it not help me? And it helped me, so what do I care what the hell happened at Blasey Ford? And third of all, of course he's wrong. The polls show the exact opposite. The deficit the Republican Party has among women was a record-breaking 25% before the Kavanaugh hearings. It is now 30%. So more women have abandoned the Republican Party. That didn't go well at all. But in his ridiculous mind, he thinks, I'm winning. I'm constantly winning. The way I mocked that woman, I won and I'm winning still. Because he's a maniac.
Right, so it's hard to figure out what exactly he meant when he's talking about the polls. So I don't think that he was specifically referring to female voters. I don't think he even really cares about how he's doing with female voters, just based on his behavior. But what the Kavanaugh hearing did was get his base a little more excited about the midterms, whereas before they were 100% complacent. But remember, I mean, one day is a lifetime when it comes to an election. So who knows if that excitement or those motivations will remain as the midterm actually approaches.
So I have seen no poll, and I look at the polls all the time, that shows that the Kavanaugh hearings were a net positive for the Republicans. So I saw a poll that indicated the Republican energy after the hearings was slightly increased, but Democratic energy was even more increased, meaning more likely to show up to vote. So even by that metric, the only thing that he could possibly be referring to, it still was a huge net negative for the Republicans. Besides which, she didn't ask about the polls and whether you're winning or not winning. She asked, hey, don't you feel bad about mocking and having thousands of people laugh at this woman who at a bare minimum believes that she was the victim of an attempted rape? And he says, yeah, but what about my polls?
Well, remember, and this is what I want everyone to just understand when it comes to every political issue that gets discussed, whether it's the disappearance of the Saudi Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, or a story like this, it always boils down to Trump's own interests, his self-interest, right? With the Khashoggi story, are you gonna stop selling weapons to the Saudis? No. Why would I stop selling weapons to the Saudis? There's a lot of money being made by selling weapons to the Saudis, even if there's evidence that they murdered a journalist who was living in the United States and worked for the Washington Post. In this story, why did you mock someone who said that the most traumatic part of her alleged sexual assault was being laughed at? Well, it was good for the polls. It always boils down to what's good for him or what he perceives as good for him. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you at all. When it comes to the tax laws that he pushed for, right? All of those tax laws specifically enriched Trump and his family members. It's not about the well-being of the country or making sure that he spurs economic growth. None of that really matters to him at the end of the day.
That's because he's a sociopath and he has no empathy for other human beings. Unfortunately, it would put him in charge of 330 million human beings. Good luck to us all.
Well, let's move on to another portion of the interview that I thought was pretty interesting. During Donald Trump's interview with Lesley Stahl on 60 Minutes, he had some pretty harsh things to say about both the political world and also his perception of the media. Now, when it comes to politics, he says that he can't believe just how dirty things really get. I'm paraphrasing, but here are his exact words.
What's the biggest surprise? And what have you learned since you've been president?
Okay, so I always used to say the toughest people are Manhattan real estate guys and blah, blah. Now I say they're babies.
Who's
They're
the
babies,
toughest?
the political people. This is the most deceptive, vicious world. It is vicious, it's full of lies, deceit, and deception. You make a deal with somebody and it's like making a deal with that table.
Give me an example.
Well, I don't want to give you an example, I'm not looking at it. In the meantime, nobody's been able to do what I've been able to do. Remember that. When you look at taxes, you look at regulations, you look at making deals with other countries, nobody's been able to do anything like this. Actually, most people didn't even try because they knew they didn't have the ability to do it.
So I just found that entire clip super ironic because at the heart of what he's talking about is Donald Trump, who says that he makes deals and that he stays true to them, but doesn't actually follow through. He's done that more often than most people realize, and I hate using his own words. But later in the show, we're going to talk about how he said that he would pay Elizabeth Warren $1 million if she took a DNA test to prove her Native American heritage. She did that. He was on tape making that argument. And now he's saying, no, I didn't say that. What are you talking about? He is the heart of the deception and the dirt in politics at this very moment.
Yeah. I mean, again, littered with absurdities. I might actually defend him a little bit later in this particular segment on one issue, but on this one, so you just found out that there's deception in politics after. I mean, how many lies? There's literally over 1,000 lies that Donald Trump has told. I can give you an example from the other day when he said he did a $110 billion deal with Saudi Arabia for arms. No, it was a $4 billion deal. Why bother lying about that? I mean, the list goes on and on. And including in that answer, I've made deals no one else can make. But with other countries, he mentioned. What do you mean with other countries? Right now, we've done tariffs all across the world. and the world pretty much hates us. We got out of the Paris Accords, we got out of the Iran deal, we got out of almost, all you've done is antagonize our allies in NATO, Canada, Mexico, etc. What deals are you referring to?
All he's done is renege on deals.
Yeah, and so maybe he's referring to, like, if I stretch it, I think they just redid NAFTA, right? No one has ever been able to do a deal. Wait, you're redoing NAFTA. That was a deal. They made that deal. We were able to make that deal without you. So I don't know what in God's green earth you think you're talking about except for your self-delusion, which is endless. And then who says babies? Let alone when you're president of the United States. Now I think that those New York guys were babies. And I figured it out in the middle of this interview. Because he said babies like 3 different times at least in this interview. I'm like, what a weird thing for a grown man to say, right? Calling other people babies. I was like, oh my God. And I grant you this is pop psychology. I think his dad used to call him a baby.
Maybe.
And because that's because he's a spoiled little child. And Fred Trump was known to be very stern. He probably kept calling Donald as an insult, like, stop being a baby, you're such a baby, which is what he is.
Yeah.
So he probably internalized that, and as a 70-some-odd-year-old man, he's still going around saying, now the real estate guys, they're babies. God, that's so embarrassing.
You know, you just touched on something that makes me think of a point that I've been waiting for the perfect moment to share with the audience. The phrase daddy issues is usually exclusively reserved for women, but like, let's keep it 100. How many times have we dealt with politicians, male politicians, who have had daddy issues? Whether it's George W. Bush, Donald Trump, it all goes back to, you know, their fathers being disappointed in them, and then essentially these politicians carrying out actions that negatively impact all of us just to prove something to their daddy.
100%, especially with George W. Bush and Donald J. Trump. No question about it.
So, of course, Donald Trump had some harsh things to say about politics and politicians, but as always, he took this interview as an opportunity to further insult the press. Take a look.
The thing I've really learned is I never knew how dishonest the media was. I really mean it. I'm not saying that as a soundbite. I never knew how dishonest.
I'm going to change the subject again.
Well, no, but even the way you asked me a question, like about separation.
Yeah.
When I say Obama did it, you don't want to talk about it.
No.
When I say I did it, let's make a big deal.
I'm going to run your answer, but you did it 4 times.
I'm just telling you that you treated me much differently on the subject.
I disagree, but I don't want to have that fight with you.
Hey,
all right,
it's
we're
okay.
gonna have another fight with you.
Leslie, it's okay. In the meantime, I'm president and you're not.
Who says that? Like, who says that? Who says I'm president and you're not? Baby.
So I actually had slight disagreement on that. So I'll get to that in a sec. First, he's like, I didn't know the press was this dishonest. Remember that Donald Trump used to call the press pretending to be John Barron or John Miller and lying to the press about how he was dating Madonna and other absurd things. And the press would run it. And remember that Donald Trump did a deal with the National Enquirer where he would have them buy stories that were negative to him and spike the stories. So you didn't know that the press was that dishonest? As you were, part one, you were lying to them throughout your entire career and still do so to this day, even though we can all catch you and see you with our own eyes. Number 2, you made deals with members of the press to be dishonest on your behalf. So now he comes in like a baby. Like, well, I didn't know the press was gonna be mean to me. Because in his mind, he probably thought, oh, once I become president, they'll all bow down and be like, oh, Donald Trump, you are the greatest. Like I do in my own businesses. I only hire, in Trump's mind, I only hire lackeys and sycophants. And if they say anything negative about me, I immediately fire them until I hire someone else. Doesn't matter whether they're competent or incompetent, that pleases me and that says nice things about me because I'm so fragile and thin-skinned and insecure that I don't want to deal with it. So when the press did not go along with his vision of how he ran his small business, that's why he was like, I can't believe it. I thought you were going to lie on my behalf. That's what I've gotten everybody always to do. Why won't you lie to me and tell me I'm great? Right?
Well, there's one cable news network that does lie on his behalf on a regular basis. He just doesn't understand why the rest of the press doesn't do his bidding for him. Yeah, so
the slight disagreement is like one, when he says, well, I'm the president, you're not, right? I get that it's childish. And furthermore, It reminded me of Kavanaugh saying to a little bit to Senator Klobuchar when she asked, "Did you ever black out from drinking?" Oh, did you? Right? So it's a little immature and it feels entitled a little bit, like, well, I get to do this, and what are you questioning me for, right? And we could note that they were both women who asked the questions, et cetera. But so where's the defense? Well, look, the Democrats are too nice, and so they never draw the line with anybody. They never push back, and there's a part of me that doesn't mind a guy who is a tough guy if it was proportionate across the board, right? And so to me, Obama constantly appeasing and appeasing and appeasing, and so if Obama, again, I always think, what if the shoe was on the other foot, right? If Obama at some point had said to Bill O'Reilly during an interview, well, that's an interesting opinion, Bill. The good thing is I'm president and you're not. I have to say, I would have loved that. So that's why I have mixed feelings about that last part of the answer.
Yeah, look, everything has to be taken in context. And so in the context of Obama, his behavior, there isn't a pattern of immaturity.
Yeah, great point.
And he also didn't have this authoritarian streak or characteristic that Trump does have. So when Trump says something like that, it does come across as insanely immature. And also it signals yet again that he doesn't care what anyone else thinks, that he doesn't value the democratic process. I'm president, you're not. What I say goes. And that's terrifying. It's terrifying in a country that's supposed to operate based on a democratic process.
And it's certainly fair to point out that Trump has called the press the enemy of the people, whereas Obama did not. On the other hand,
we need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Obama did, prosecute members of the press under the Espionage Act and open this door. To his earlier point about whether Obama did the child separation at the border, no, Obama had terrible policies in regards to immigration, if you ask me. We called him out on it while he was president, and he deported more people than any other president before him. But did he separate children from their parents at the border? No, he did not. That is yet another giant lie by Donald Trump, who in this interview, as he does in every interview, does nothing but lie.
Yeah, and I actually want to give Lesley Stahl some credit because there was a portion of the interview where they talked about the zero tolerance policy, and Trump immediately deflected and blamed Obama, saying that he had done the same thing. But Lesley Stahl did fact check him right there on the spot, and when he tried to argue about it, she just very, professionally changed the topic to something else. It was a quick fact check, but I'm not getting into a debate because obviously we don't agree on the facts here.
And in that clip too, she said, look, you already said that 4 times because she has a limited period of time. She's got to get her questions in. And if she doesn't include any of Trump's answers, he's going to cry like a baby. So that's why she's like, look, I got to move on to another question. I already told you were wrong on that issue. And nevertheless, you persisted in your own absurd way. So I think Stahl did a very good job here. And that's, by the way, 2 for 2 for CBS. John Dickerson calling out Mitch McConnell on something he said that was wrong. Now Lesley Stahl doing it on 60 Minutes to Donald Trump. That is what journalists are supposed to do.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into foreign policy and Trump's perception of whether or not he's been successful with North Korea and with Russia.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Time for your comments. I'm going to read one quick one from Twitter first and then go to the members as we usually do. Mathemagician Me writes in, finally logged in. Trump's interview last night will be recorded in history as proof of his fascist narcissism. But again, the most important thing he said last night is the most honest thing any Republican has said. It doesn't matter if Dr. Ford was raped or not, we won. So he didn't add the rape part in the actual quote. He said, when asked about whether there was an attempted rape on her, he said, it doesn't matter, we won. Wow. The callousness of that is literally unprecedented. I don't even think Inhofe would say that. Trump is a uniquely despicable person. I can't.
And
to this late date, I still cannot believe he's president. I went back and watched my video from 5 days before the election where I said you should vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. First of all, nailed it. I said, you think you live in a blue state, Pennsylvania might not be blue. Okay. Second of all, I laid out what a monster he was. And we knew it. We knew it going in. It's not like, hey, but I said at that time, I said, look, guys, he really might win. You're not getting it. He really could win. And we didn't get it, and we reelected him anyway. I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said Meteor 2016 left over from the last election. Well, that's what we got, right? Yeah,
and I have to be honest. I knew that he wouldn't be a great president. I underestimated how bad it would be. I really did. It's much worse than I had expected. Yeah, it's just nonstop trauma in a way. So, all right, let me go to the members' comments real quick. The Beard writes in, I'm a new member and I cannot believe Trump believes his own hype, let alone anyone else. He is literally the worst president we've ever had to deal with. All he has done is make love to himself and other dictators. Thanks, TYT, for your honesty and integrity. Well, thank you. And I want to let you guys know, members only tomorrow night. So we're going to do the show where that's normal and Rebel headquarters in the post game, and then we're going to go straight into Ted Cruz Beto O'Rourke debate. That is just for the members. We're going to cover it live, play by play. John Idarola and myself. Last time everybody gave Beto high marks except us, interestingly enough, because he does not want to attack Ted Cruz, and honestly, it's a little frustrating to watch. And then press likes it, but I don't know if regular folks like it. So anyway, we're gonna do that analysis for you and watch the debate with you guys. So make sure that you get a chance to watch that tomorrow night for the members. tyt.com/join to become a member and get that. And then last couple comments here. Megan E. Zombie writes in, these are all members, want to talk about baby. You're so mean to me and you weren't mean to other presidents. Such a great point. I mean, what kind of a baby says that? And JJ Belmar says, I'm president, you're not. It reminds me of someone losing an argument and says, because I said so. Yeah, totally.
That is fair as well. That is fair as well. And everything the Republicans do is projection. There's more stories of that later in today's show. And so when he calls other people babies, it's because right in front of our eyes, he acts like a baby, a grown-ass baby. Okay, all right, let's do more.
All right. Donald Trump had a very rocky beginning in his presidency, especially when it came to his relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. But following a summit with Kim Jong-un, Trump declared that he now has a great relationship with him and that a deal has been made for North Korea to denuclearize. Lesley Stahl asked him about all of this during her interview with Trump on 60 Minutes, and here's what he had to say.
The day before I came in, we were going to war with North Korea. I sat with President Obama.
We were going to war?
We were going to, I think it was going to end up in war. And my impression is, and even in my first few months, I mean, that rhetoric was as tough as it could possibly get. Doesn't get any tougher than that. Nobody's ever heard rhetoric that tough.
Everything's hyperbole. everything. No one's ever heard rhetoric that tough. No, nobody ever heard rhetoric that absurd when you claimed that your button was bigger than Kim Jong-un's button.
Okay.
When you called him Rocket Man. What is that? Do grown-up people do that, let alone presidents? That was the part that was unprecedented. In that case, unprecedented.
I love how he conveniently mixes up the timeline where he's like, a day before I came into office, we were about to go to war with North Korea. No, we were about to go to war with North Korea because you were acting like a child on social media and taunting Kim Jong-un. You were escalating the situation, which had gotten so bad that North Korea and South Korea were like, oh damn, let's get together and talk this out because this guy's probably gonna make things get really bad.
Yeah, no, he can't leave well enough alone because this is actually a situation where he could take a little bit of credit. A reasonable way to handle with this would be, look, we had bad relationship with North Korea. No one disputes that. They're hard to trust, but and yes, I was quite bellicose when I was talking to them in the beginning, but that was to get them to the table, and we did. And we don't have a deal yet, and they have not denuclearized yet, but we're on our way, and I think we're on a much better path towards peace today. Perfectly good answer. That would actually match your record. But no, it was the best. I was the greatest, and it's already done. And we were about to go to war, and now we're not going to go to war because it's me, the greatest ever. Oh, for Christ's sake.
So I totally agree with you. Trump could use this effectively to his advantage, and he can claim some credit. So to give you an example, the president of South Korea recently spoke to the press and talked about how he does believe that North Korea will denuclearize, that they will hold up their side of the deal. But why does he think that? Does he think it's because of Trump's tough rhetoric during the summit? Of course not. But he does say that the economic sanctions are squeezing North Korea to the point where Kim Jong-un has no choice. He does have to comply or else he and his country will suffer further. So Trump can use that to his advantage. I mean, he's the one who pushed for more sanctions against North Korea, and it appears so far that it could potentially work. But he doesn't know how to take credit the effective way. In fact, I'll give you another example of what he had to say about North Korea, and here he is taking credit for ridiculous things.
But is it true that they haven't gotten rid of a single weapon and they may actually be building more missiles?
They want to, and I will tell you that they're closing up sites.
But is what I said true, that they haven't?
Well, nobody really knows. I mean, people are saying that.
Yeah.
I've actually said that, and nobody really knows.
But that they're still building missiles, more missiles?
We don't really know, Leslie. We really don't know.
I mean, the guy's just a walking caricature. He's now playing himself. It's almost as if he's doing an SNL skit where he's imitating Alec Baldwin, imitating him. Well, I would tell you, Leslie, no one really knows. I don't really know either. I don't know anything, Leslie.
I know, you're so right. I feel like all of his expressions and his hand gestures have only gotten more extreme, I guess, throughout his presidency.
I don't know if he's devolving. I don't know if a person of that caliber, meaning that low a caliber, could devolve any further, but if he is, he's doing it right in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Well, Stahl did ask him a question that I've been dying for the press to ask him, and it has everything to do with Trump's love affair with Kim Jong-un. So the diplomatic approach is a good one, and we've talked about that on the show before, but Trump has gone above and beyond, and he even went so far as to say that he fell in love with Kim Jong-un, that they fell in love with one another. And so Stahl kind of wanted to call him out on that and ask why. Here it is.
We're meeting. I believe he likes me, I like him, we have a good relationship. It's very important.
And then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love.
I want to read you his resume, okay? He presides over a cruel kingdom of repression, gulags, starvation, reports that he had his half-brother assassinated, slave labor, public executions. This is a guy you love.
I know all these things. I mean, I'm not a baby. I know all these things.
But why do you love that guy?
Look. I get along with him, okay?
But you said love him.
Okay, that's just like a figure of speech.
No, it's like an embrace.
Well, let it be an embrace. Let it be whatever it is to get the job done.
He's a bad guy.
Look, let it be whatever it is. I get along with him really well. I have a good energy with him. I have a good chemistry with him. Look at the horrible threats that were made. No more threats.
Okay, so let's break that one down. First of all, I went nuts over him saying that they fell in love. And I didn't know why nobody else was going nuts over it.
But he wrote him letters.
He wrote me beautiful letters. He was like, I thought I was in the middle of The Notebook. Okay, I just couldn't figure out which one was Ryan Gosling. Okay,
either one.
Right, neither. Correct answer, neither. Okay, anyway, and he's like, you wrote me beautiful letters. Who says that? Who says that? Okay, then and then his answer is almost more unbelievable to Leslie Stahl. I'm not a baby, I know that. I could see him saying it to his dad. I'm not a baby, Dad, I know that. I know I'm not supposed to go bankrupt 6 times, but can you please bail me out again, right? No, but Donald, we don't know that you're not a baby. I mean, you're the guy who came out and after you said it was gonna be so easy to destroy Obamacare and replace it with perfect universal coverage that was less expensive, you came out with a plan that did none of those things and it failed. And then your answer was, nobody knew healthcare was this complicated. Are you serious? No, that's what a baby would say. Everyone else knew how complicated healthcare was. So, but out of all those things, when he said I had good energy with him, for whatever reason, that is the one that put me even more over the top on this. And remember, this is a thing that he actually could get a little bit of credit for if he just showed some restraint for once in his life and said, not we did one everything and I'm head over heels in love with him because he said, wrote me a nice letter, but said, hey, we're on a better path.
Yes.
We're on a better road. That's all you gotta say. But he can't help himself. Well, I have really good energy with him. What the hell does that mean? That's like, it reminds me of when Bush said that he looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes and saw that he had a good soul. I don't want presidents looking at making googly eyes with foreign leaders, let alone ones that border on dictator or clearly are dictators. And then Trump, I mean, Bush, if you remember, had given Putin the nickname of Pootie Poot. We have had 2 imbecile Republican presidents back to back, totally unqualified for office. This party is deeply embarrassing, and anyone who votes for these buffoons is deeply embarrassing.
But I feel like there was a difference between Bush and Trump. And the difference isn't, the offense, I guess, but the way people reacted to it, the way voters reacted to it. Trump just openly, during a rally, he's at a rally, said that he and Kim Jong-un, a dictator, fell in love. And his base in the same video was like, woo, this is great. Whereas with Bush, his statements regarding Pootie Poot, I'm sure some of his voters didn't care that much, but there was a lot more criticism toward that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and look, it's just one last thing on this. Imagine now if somebody else had said it. If Hillary Clinton had said she had fallen in love with Kim Jong-un, the mass murdering dictator of North Korea. Okay, I mean, do I need to say anything more? Imagine if Jill Stein, when she came to interview with me and she had said she had fallen in love with Kim Jong-un, I would have been like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's unbelievably embarrassing, right? And they would have been pilloried and it would have been over. It would have been over for Hillary. It could have easily ended her career, as it turns out it got ended anyway. But if she had said that she had fallen in love with Kim Jong-un, or that if a female leader said that they had good energy with a dictator,
done.
People would be like, oh, look at this woman.
It's all about emotion. What's up with the emotion, man? So emotional.
Yeah,
totally.
Good chemistry, good energy. What does that mean? Falling in love. A female leader would have immediately been eliminated. Whereas Donald Trump just keeps on riding along and everybody's like, well, of course, that's where his base, his dumbass MAGA guys go around like, well, of course, you're supposed to fall in love with dictators. What else do you do with them? No, you find a dictator and then you make sweet, beautiful letters to them and then you'll fall in love.
Good chemistry with them.
Yeah, and oh my God, the good energy we have with dictators, this is what the Republican Party's proud of now. Congrats.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to a different problematic individual, and that's Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump has been notoriously soft on Vladimir Putin. Now, there have been multiple attention-grabbing headlines involving journalists who have been murdered. There's some evidence indicating that those journalists were targeted by Putin himself. And so why? Why has Trump been so soft on Putin? That's the big question. And Lesley Stahl asked him about that during her interview, her second interview with Trump on 60 Minutes. Take a look.
People don't understand why you never have a harsh word for Vladimir Putin.
Okay, you ready?
I don't understand.
You don't know what I talked about with Putin in the meeting prior to the press conference?
Publicly. You never say anything harsh about him publicly.
I didn't. I'm the one that gave Ukraine offensive weapons and tank killers. Obama didn't. You know what he sent? He sent pillows and blankets. I'm the one, and he's the one that gave away a part of Ukraine, where Russia now has this submarine.
I mean him personally. Vladimir Putin.
I think I'm very tough with him personally. I had a meeting with him, the two of us.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a very tough meeting, and it was a very good meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a very tough meeting. It was a very good meeting. We had that meeting one-on-one in private, and it was completely secret, but it was a very tough meeting, just believe me. And didn't the United States impose sanctions against Russia as a result of the annexation of Crimea? No. Yeah, that's what happened. Obama didn't give away Crimea. It didn't work that way.
So mixed one on this one. So first of all, Trump did give offensive weapons to Ukraine, which Obama was not willing to do. That part is true, and so you can count that as something where he was tough on Russia. In terms of the verbiage, not remotely so. So we saw what happened in that press conference. The whole world saw it, and so he claims, "Oh, trust me, privately I was very tough with him." No, I don't believe you. I don't trust you, because when you stepped out in public, he literally bowed his head. There's all those pictures where Putin is standing tall and Trump is literally bowing his head like reek, okay, in the middle of the press conference, and constantly saying, "Well, if Vladimir says it must be true. I asked him and he says he didn't do it. I believe him more than I believe US intelligence." I mean, it was embarrassing. So just keep it real on that. And to the point of the sanctions, that ties both those things together. This is the most important point. Okay, give him credit for you giving weapons to Ukraine if you believe in that policy, or if you believe in being tough on Russia in that way. But how about the sanctions? The sanctions were so tough on Russia that they went on to interfere in our elections to make sure that Trump won, so that a Democrat wouldn't continue to be that tough on them. They're like tanks. Yeah, you can send in tanks to Ukraine. We got more tanks than they do. That's not gonna bother us. We already took it, and you're not gonna be able to do a goddamn thing about it. Freezing my money and all the oligarch money? No, unacceptable, right? That's why they hated Obama, they hated Hillary Clinton, they don't mind Trump at all. And what has Trump done? When those sanctions were renewed by Congress and some added on top, Trump said he didn't want to sign it. Then it was 98-2, so he didn't have a choice. They could override his veto. He, while signing it, said, "I don't want to sign this." And then later refused to enforce them for an extraordinary period of time, even though legally it was his job to enforce them. That's the actions of Donald Trump in regards to Vladimir Putin.
And then one other thing I just want to add in regard to supplying weapons to Ukraine. Look, Trump will supply weapons to anyone, right? Like that's he's willing to continue supplying weapons to Saudi Arabia following the story of likely the murder of a journalist who was working for the Washington Post, because it's all about making deals at the end of the day. So look, whether or not you agree with supplying weapons in that specific case, that's a different debate. The point I'm trying to make is Trump will willy-nilly give out weapons or sell weapons if he thinks that it's gonna benefit either himself or the private military contractors or weapon manufacturers that support him. Right? Yeah. So that's a point I wanted to just quickly make. Now, the second part of the Putin discussion had to do with the murdered journalists. Again, I want to give Stahl credit for bringing this up. And Trump's answer was fascinating, so take a look.
Do you agree that Vladimir Putin is involved in assassinations, in poisonings?
Probably he is, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't. Probably, but I rely on them. It's not in our country.
Okay, why not? They shouldn't do it. This is a terrible thing.
Of course they shouldn't do it. Okay, that's the only collusion.
Do you believe that the Russians interfered in the 2016 campaign, election?
Well, they meddled, but I think China meddled too.
But
and
why
I think
do you
other
say
countries,
China meddled
and you
too?
want to know something?
Why do you say China? Why don't you just say the Russians meddled?
Because I think China meddled also.
Okay, so two things that shows that he's putting soft on Russia. One is, so he probably did the poisoning and the assassination, but it's not our country.
Yeah.
Wait, did he do it inside Russia? Well, he's done it many times inside Russia, and then you could say that's internal affairs. I wouldn't support that kind of thinking, but I get it, right? No, he did it in the UK. That is our top ally. So what, I guess now you could just assassinate people in allied countries and it's not a big deal. So now let's use a different ally and see if it comes across a little differently. Oh, they assassinated someone inside Israel. Who cares? Not our country. My guess is that is not the reaction Trump or anyone else in Washington would have if that happened. And it is very brazen to say, not our country, when he's referring to the UK. And then he said, well, China meddled too, China meddled too. Well, first of all, that was not the conversation. Second of all, wait, how did they meddle? I'm very curious about that. I don't disbelieve it. I believe that that's entirely possible. If you have significant evidence and now you're emphasizing it more than Russia, did they meddle more? Then you should tell us about that evidence and we should take action against China. So that isn't about politics, that's about national security. But you don't have that evidence. You just want to be able to deflect. Why? Because Russia meddled on your behalf. It's the most obvious thing in the whole world.
So he's brought up the argument regarding China meddling in the election multiple times. And of course, journalists have been pushing him for evidence. And anytime he's pushed for evidence, he immediately starts talking about the trade war with China and how China is specifically targeting farmers, with their own tariffs in response. These are retaliatory tariffs, which any other country would respond with. That's not evidence of Chinese meddling. So his argument is, well, they're doing these retaliatory tariffs and they're impacting our farmers, and the farmers usually vote for me, so that's election meddling.
No, it's not.
But that's not meddling. That is not meddling. That is what you would expect to be the reaction of any country when you slap them with new, random, sporadic tariffs.
Look, I think a lot of countries meddle in our elections. I think companies meddle in our elections nonstop. That's legal when it shouldn't be. So there's 1,000 different defenses you can have about a real systemic problems in our electoral system. But China did it too because they countered my tariffs is not one of them. It's about the worst defense you can give. And so the reality is our system is an auction rather than a democracy. Everybody meddles by giving billions of dollars to these corrupt politicians. So that's a great and legitimate and welcome answer, but that's not the one he gives because he also revels in that corruption, is thrilled with that corruption. And so in the case of Russia, it is obvious illegal interference for a foreign government to help one of the candidates, and Trump was the beneficiary of that. At a bare minimum, even if he didn't encourage it and he didn't communicate with them and he didn't have a prior deal with them, none of which I believe he had all those things, okay? But at a bare minimum, the Russians clearly publicly helped him. And so he thinks, so what? As we talked about earlier, all he cares about is what's in it for me. So he's like, well, the Russians helped me, so I don't care that they violated our national security. Who cares? That would involve the American people and the sanctity of our system and our democracy. That's entirely irrelevant to Donald Trump, who only judges things by one simple metric. Did it help me or did it not help me? Period. And the rest is your problem, not his problem. And that's not how a president is supposed to act. They're supposed to be the president of the United States of America and all of us and look out for us. He doesn't give a damn about you. All he cares about is himself.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will jump into the Elizabeth Warren story. She just took a DNA test to prove her Native American heritage.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks, just time for a couple of member comments here. One of 19 writes in, I find it interesting that 60 Minutes had a woman to conduct this interview. I think she flustered him by confronting his power, and he replied, I'm the president, you're not.
Okay, yes. Can I jump in on
Yeah,
that?
of course.
I was I was really impressed by her in this interview. So of course I watched the full interview, and you should as well, because she did not allow him in any way to intimidate her. She was calm, she was cool, collected, and she asked the right questions. The questions that I've had in the back of my mind forever, she asked him, and she did not allow him to overpower her or intimidate her. So I was impressed by that whole performance. You guys should check it out.
Yeah, like I said, 2 for 2. John Dickerson and Leslie Stahl with great interviews back to back there. All right, Justin writes in, so Trump's response to criticism over saying he loves Kim Jong-un is to essentially admit that he's bowing down to the North Korean leader, saying nice things about him so that he won't threaten us anymore, which makes America look weaker, not stronger. That's an interesting point that I had not considered, because he said, well, they're not threatening us anymore. Well, that's not why we should be offering concessions to a foreign leader. So, interesting point, Justin. Chris says, I agree 100% with the Young Turks regarding O'Rourke needing to get tougher in his debate with Cruz. I know he wants to be positive and stay positive, and I admire that, but he's in a pit with a snake, and he needs to take its political head off before its poison stays in the system too long. The very end of the last debate, where O'Rourke went out with class and Cruz went out like a member of the reptile class, was a perfect example of what the two candidates are about. Now the Texans need to see O'Rourke can stand his ground. He hasn't shown that yet. So, well, we'll see if he does tomorrow night. I am a little worried about it. We're preparing a special surprise for Ted Cruz that I hope to release tomorrow as well. But if you're a member, please check out the coverage of the debate tomorrow. It's just for members, tyt.com/join. John and I will do play-by-play on the Beto versus Beta debate tomorrow. Okay, Anna, what's next?
Donald Trump has been mocking Elizabeth Warren after she claimed that part of her family heritage includes Native American ancestry. And so he calls her Pocahontas over and over again. And during one rally in Montana in July, Trump even offered her some money to take a DNA test to prove that she has Native American heritage. Take a look.
When she proclaims that she's of Indian heritage, because her mother said she has high cheekbones. That's her only evidence, that her mother said she had high cheekbones. We will take that little kit and say, but we have to do it gently. Because we're in the Me Too generation, so we have to be very gentle. And we will very gently take that kit and we will slowly toss it, hoping it doesn't hit her and injure her arm. Even though it only weighs probably 2 ounces. And we will say, I will give you $1 million to your favorite charity, paid for by Trump, if you take the test and it shows you're an Indian, you know.
Well, Elizabeth Warren has taken a DNA test.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
She released the results in a YouTube video, and we're going to show you a few portions of it in just a second. But just to give you some background information on it, the test conducted by Stanford University professor Carlos Bustamante, a genetics and genomics expert, concludes that there is strong evidence that Warren's DNA sample of primarily European descent also contains Native American ancestry from an ancestor in the sample's pedigree 6 to 10 generations ago. All right, so by the way, Bustamante concludes with 99% confidence that Warren's DNA sample contains 5 genetic segments spanning 12.3 million DNA bases, which are Native American in origin.
And he said in the original quote that it was strong evidence. So Donald Trump should appreciate that. It's got strong in it.
Well, I want to show you a few snippets from her video, and then the response from Trump and his cronies is hilarious. So let's take a quick look at what Elizabeth Warren's video contained.
Hi, I'm Carlos Bustamante, and I've advised companies in the direct-to-consumer space, including Ancestry.com, 23andMe, and Helix. In the senator's genome, we did find 5 segments of Native American ancestry with very high confidence, where we believe the error rate is less than 1 in 1,000.
Now, the president likes to call my mom a liar. What do the facts say?
The facts suggest that you absolutely have a Native American ancestor in your pedigree.
We come from Oklahoma. When we were born, they said, these are the parents, these are your grandparents, these are your aunts and uncles. Their word was always their bond. They were honest.
That's right. Well, that's what Betsy's been saying.
I'm not enrolled in a tribe, and only tribes determine tribal citizenship. I understand and respect that distinction, but my family history is my family history.
So that should do it. That's definitive. Donald Trump owes a charity of her choice $1 million. You want to guess whether he's going to pay it? Well, his view of a charity is a sham. It's a scam that you run to enrich yourself. So not very likely, but she stone cold busted him. Those are her brothers in that living room that you saw in that portion of the tape. And at least 2 of them in the video said we're Republicans. And so that's normal in a family, the Republicans and Democrats. They're like, yeah, but our mom told us the same story about how we were Native American. And it turns out they were Native American, right? Now, of course, it's not going to appease the Republicans because they're like, well, we don't want to pass up a good opportunity to be racist. And they like calling her Pocahontas. So now, how is that not offensive? I'm just trying to figure that out. If she's not Native American, does that make the racial taunt better? If she is Native American, does it make it better or worse? So none of the things that Donald Trump has ever said on this issue has ever made any sense, or any of the Republicans, even before Donald Trump. And it was obvious from day one, but I'm glad she took the DNA test. 1, to just end it for good. Number 2, so that we're clear that Donald Trump owes her $1 million, no ands, ifs, or buts. I'll get into contractual issues in a second and why it's a valid contract. But let me show you a video that I did back in 2012. This was pre-Trump. Trump, of course, has always made it worse. But Scott Brown had started this against her when they were running for Senate against each other in Massachusetts. And at the time, the Republican voters and supporters of Scott Brown had started doing tomahawk chops around her, okay? So, and now mind you, this is pre-DNA test. This issue never made any sense. This is what I said back in 2012.
They had to really stretch, and they came up with Elizabeth Warren once checked off that she was part Native American on a form. We've got a form. We've got a form. And look at her. She's white. Of course, she's not Native American, except that her mother is partly Native American. She came. Apparently, she's part Cherokee and part Delaware Indian. So she didn't make it up. It's actually totally true. So what do you have on her? I don't get it. And she filled this stuff out after she had her job. It wasn't like, oh, I'm Cherokee and please give me the job. So this is the dumbest, silliest controversy I have seen in a long time.
But nevertheless, it persisted. Okay, and this really, I mean, all the way back then, one of the dumbest talking points ever. First of all, how would you know that she's not Native American by just looking at her? What a preposterous claim. Anybody could be 1/16th anything and you would never know. So how could they have been positive that she wasn't Native American? The starting point was stupid, and it only got worse from there. Number 2, and the most important part of this whole thing, she never ever claimed in any job application that she was a minority and that she should be in a minority category to use affirmative action. No one ever made that claim. In the video, she had all the people who had hired her at different jobs, and they all said, no, we didn't hire her as a minority. She never checked that off. And we hired her because she was one of the top law professors in the country. And everybody knew that. And so if she didn't use it to her advantage, even if it were not true, and it is, now it's definitive, what difference would it have made, right? So for example, in our family lore, no one's really sure, but they think that I might be 1/8 Kurdish. I don't know if that's true or not. Have I ever checked off on an application, I'm Kurdish and I should get some sort of benefit for that? No, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't work here anyway. In Turkey, maybe it might work, but I wouldn't do that. And I didn't do that. So it is irrelevant. It is irrelevant from the get-go. So why did the Republicans focus on this so much all the way through Trump? For two reasons. One, they really have nothing on her. They never had anything on her back then. They don't have anything on her today. The fact is, she does fight for the American people. She helps set up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that returned billions of dollars to the American taxpayers that they had been defrauded from the banks. That's why the Republicans hate her and why they can't find a good way to attack her, because when they say, oh my God, she took money that the banks cheated from you and gave it back to you. Whoa, that didn't work. No, let's call her something else, right? And so she's populist in all those ways, and so it opens up no lines of attack. Then now, and the second reason why they use this line of attack was it's racist. So they're like, oh great, we'll call her, in case of Donald Trump, we'll call her Pocahontas, we'll do tomahawk chops. And one of the Republicans, and it's in the video, does the Native American, I don't want to repeat it, but you get it, the war call, et cetera. And so they were like, yes, our base will love being racist against Native Americans. This is gonna work great. And it lacks all substance. It's perfect for Republicans.
It's incredible the examples of double standards we have in politics at this very moment. First of all, I don't care about her heritage. I don't care if she's 100% white. I don't care if she's 100% Native American. I don't care if she's, I don't know. I just don't care. I wanna know what she stands for, what she's gonna do for the American people, what's her voting record. Those are things that people just don't care about anymore in politics, and it drives me crazy. Secondly, if you're going, first, she's already proven something, right? But let's say it was a lie, and it turns out that she has absolutely no Native American ancestry. So what, right? And by the way, who knows? Like, we're told all sorts of things from our parents, right? But we don't know what's true.
That's why I brought up the Kurdish thing, otherwise it's irrelevant. I don't know if that's true, but some people in our family believe it's true. The people who believe that were from 2 generations ago. They obviously didn't take a DNA test. But it doesn't mean they were liars. That's what they believed, and they passed it on to my parents, who passed it on to me. So it's not a lie. It's just something that your mom told you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, my mom told me all sorts of wonderful things about myself growing up. Most of them aren't true. So it's fine, right? But anyway, moving on with Trump. I mean, if you're going to go after her for allegedly lying about something like that, well, what about your president? Right? What about this person who lies on an hourly basis about all sorts of things? In fact, let me give you an example of a recent lie in regard to this very story. So you guys saw the video yourselves. Trump said that he would give her $1 million to the charity of her choice. And so she tweeted and mentioned the charity that she would like him to give the $1 million to. In fact, she wants the money to go to the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, which helps support Native American victims of sexual violence, okay? And what was Trump's response to all of that? Well, reporters asked him, hey, she took the DNA test, you're supposed to pay $1 million to the charity of her choice, what are you gonna do now? And he said, quote, who cares? I didn't say that, you better read it again. No, but you did say that.
It's on tape.
You did say that.
It's not only on tape, it's in the video she released showing you were wrong. So we all just saw it on this particular issue. We just showed it to you a little earlier in this clip, where he says, oh, I'll lightly toss it to her. And if she's, if she takes it and it turns out she's an Indian, I will give $1 million to her. I know it's so unbelievable, we have to keep repeating it. Today he said, I didn't say it.
Unbelievable.
There's no words left for how pathological he is in terms of the lies. It's nonstop. And Anna, you're right, I had not thought about it in that context of the irony and the hypocrisy as it relates to this story. They accuse her of lying about her Native American heritage, which is not true, while the other guy lies about everything. Everything. He finally built his wall. It's a wall of lies. And they're like, oh, that's fine, that's fine. I mean, MAGA guys, you just saw both of those quotes right next to each other. What are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? He's a liar. He's a super obvious liar. You got nothing. You're like, oh yeah, but on the other hand, Pocahontas, yeah, we make fun of Indians. Okay, that's what the Republican Party's reduced to, a bunch of clowns. Okay, I'm not done yet. Hold.
Okay.
Okay, hold. Anna, is the funny that we're doing this live, but there's a couple layers to the story.
Yes.
The McCarthy guy, is that a different?
That's a different story.
Okay,
yeah.
So let me do one other thing related to this then. Okay, so Elizabeth Warren proves today that she does have Native American heritage, and Donald Trump, of course, had famously said that he would give her $1 million if she took a DNA test, even though he said today I didn't say that, but he did. It's on tape, of course. So now she says, okay, great, give it to a charity for Native American victims of sexual violence. Perfect, okay? It's called the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. Now, will Donald Trump give the $1 million? So that, we already know the answer to. No way. One of the reasons he won't give it is because he's not that rich. He got $431 million from his dad, but he's based on publicly available evidence, likely he squandered most of it. And so that's why he used his own charity to run scams and pay his own legal bills, which is deeply illegal. And so, by the way, he should be criminally prosecuted, not just civilly pursued for the scams he ran with his charity, let alone Trump University, which is another scam that he had to pay $25 million for because he's a perpetual liar and a fraud and a con artist, okay? So is he going to renege on this promise? Of course he is. He reneges on every promise. And he doesn't have that much money, so he wouldn't want to part with $1 million. If he actually had $10 billion like he claims, $1 million would be nothing. He'd be like, oh, I wanted to help the Native American woman anyway. Maybe it helps him politically. But he didn't have $1 million to throw around because he squandered most of daddy's money. Okay, now the question is, does he legally owe it to her? Is that just a flippant remark in a rally that he did, or does it have legal effect? And the answer is yes, it has legal effect. It is what's called a unilateral contract offer, okay? And so, for example, I've done one. I said to Ted Cruz, I challenge you to a debate, and all you have to do is come and debate. You don't even have to win. And I'll give you $10,000, okay? So Ted Cruz can accept that at any time. The way that a contract becomes valid is the person accepts and does the action that was required. So if Ted Cruz walks in right now and says, I'll debate you, I owe him $10,000. That's just the way it is. That's a real contractual offer. Okay, the same with Donald Trump. When he makes the offer, she accepts, she carries it out, he owes her $1 million. There is no ambiguity in law.
Right.
So about the only thing he could claim, and this has a great twist to it, is he could claim, well, I mean, it wasn't a real offer, I was joking. It was an imaginary offer because it was obviously a joke. Now, first of all, it wasn't a joke. He said it very, very clearly. He said it in a political context, in a political rally, etc. And everybody can see that with their own eyes. But secondarily, and here comes the twist. Bill Maher once made a $5 million offer to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump then accepted. And Maher was clearly joking for a couple of reasons. One, he's a comedian. Two, his claim was Donald Trump could not show his own birth certificate because his father was an orangutan. See, that would be a fairly clear joke, right? No matter how much liberals might think poorly of Donald Trump, no one believes that Fred Trump was an actual orangutan, okay? So, but Donald Trump took it seriously and had Michael Cohen at the time, his lawyer.
Oh my God.
Threatened to sue Bill Maher, saying, you owe me $5 million. Here's my DNA test almost, right? My birth certificate showing that my dad was not an orangutan. Give me the $5 million. Why? Because he's a sad, desperate little boy. He doesn't have much money. And he's like, oh, I need Bill's money. I need it so bad.
Did that really happen?
Yes. So he demanded $5 million from Bill Maher. So by even his own standard, it makes no sense, because if he went to court and said, no, I was clearly joking, Elizabeth Warren's team would get to say, well, Bill Maher said your dad was an orangutan and you thought that wasn't a joke. You thought that was a serious offer. So by that standard, this is clearly a very serious offer that you made her. According to your own public statements, he does owe her the $1 million.
Wow.
There's no legal question about that.
I'm so happy that you touched on this angle of the story for a couple of different reasons. Reason number one, that orangutan follow-up was amazing. I didn't know that he actually approached Bill Maher. I was like, give me the $5 million.
Can I just give you the exact quote, Anna? Yeah. Thank you, sorry. He said, I don't think he was joking. He said it with venom. That was venom. What does Donald Trump do? I'm pretty sure when he's going around talking about Pocahontas, it was said with venom, okay? He says, that wasn't a joke. I'm continuing. That wasn't a joke. In fact, he was nervous when he said it. It was a pathetic delivery.
Oh my God, stop! This is insane.
Yes.
This is such a great story. Okay, the second reason why I love that you brought this up is because you owe me money.
Uh-oh.
Hey, all right, so Cenk and I made a bet. It was on this show, it was in public, it was serious, it was not a joke, where you indicated that you believe that Trump will be impeached prior to the midterm election.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I got like
However,
3 weeks left.
Hold. On a recent episode of Old School with J.R. Jackson, you conceded that you are wrong about that.
Okay, so this is the problem with people becoming members, and then they get to actually watch all the shows and et cetera. All right, if you want to bust me on all my statements, become a member at tyt.com/join, and then you could watch Old School, et cetera. No, seriously, no, I'm definitely going to pay you. I'm not Donald Trump, okay? So, look, I'm going to run out the clock here. There's like 22 days left, but I'm going to lose that bet. I was wrong on the timing. I talked about it in Old School. I talked about the 2 classic mistakes I often make. Okay, you should check that episode out just on that alone, and that's one of them, timing. And I'm wrong on the timing of that, and I will definitely pay you. I'm not a fraud like Donald Trump, and I don't say things I don't mean, right? Yeah. So I meant that bet, and it's absolutely serious. By the way, if you'd like, we could go double or nothing before his first term.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes, I just got my money back.
Wait, before his first term? What do you mean?
Like before the 4 years is up, that he will, and I didn't say impeached, by the way, I said impeached or resign, more likely resign, that he will leave office before the 4 years are up. You want to go double or nothing?
But does that mean that I don't get paid for the first initial bet?
Yeah, that's called double or nothing.
Oh.
She doesn't gamble much. So
no, I don't. But okay.
Okay,
yeah,
double or nothing, here we go, okay?
Got it.
I'm so happy I got that money back.
Get out of here.
Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Oh, I'm so glad you brought it up. Okay, and now I'll play this tape, okay, when Donald Trump resigns. And we can all look forward to that day. So that's all. You want to take another break?
Yeah, let's do that. And we have more when we come
back. And on this story, the reason I asked Anna about it, because it's such a great part of the story, I wanted to make sure we covered it for you guys. When we come back real quick, it turns out, as with everything with the Republicans, it's projection. So it turns out there is a Republican relative who has claimed to be a Native American and use it for their advantage. Oh, it's a great story. All right, we'll do it right back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.